create an app, you need two things. You need LiveCode and you need Xcode on your machine, especially if you're creating an iOS app. Obviously, you need Xcode. Everything in LiveCode is an object, and all objects can have code behind them or scripts behind them. So the first thing we're going to create is a little launcher app, and I'm going to use Dropbox to make my edits in my main project. So to create a new app, in this case, a new project in LiveCode, I'm going to go up to File, and I'm going to select New Main Stack. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a plugin so I don't have to draw all kinds of different user interface objects. So I'm going to go to Development, Plugins, and I'm going to open up this little plugin called Rev Mobile GUI. And this is just a collection of user interface items that I can drag out onto my window to help me code this up a little bit quicker. So I'm going to go ahead and set this stack. So I'm going to give the stack a name. And this stack is going to be called Launcher or App Launcher, because that's essentially all it's going to do. Is it's going to launch my application shell without having to compile. We've got a little update going. We'll have it remind me later. So now we've got our little AMP launcher titled. We're going to go ahead and make this a iPad app. We're going to say landscape so it fits on my display a little bit better. So this app, when it's compiled, is only going to work in landscape mode. It's iPad size. We're going to go ahead and add some code to let this little plugin work. So it's going to add some code here behind my window. And if I look at the stack script right now, you'll see additional code. Actually, you don't see it yet. Okay. So we're going to go ahead now and drag out a background for our app, and I'm going to switch back to iOS Control 1, and if we want, we can drag out a navbar, and we can give this navbar a name, label, we'll call it App Launcher, and you'll see that show up here now on the top. And we're going to go ahead and just create one button. So this particular app just has one button. Its main goal is to compile it and then use it to launch the main app that we'll be working on. So what we're going to do then is we'll just give this a button called Launch App, and that gives that its name there. And we'll open up the object script for this, and you'll see that code now, probably here. Yes, so a lot of this code in here has been pre-done because I'm using this mobile GUI plugin. So all I'm going to do here is, these are all commented out, so they're not going to do anything, but I'm going to say go URL quote, and then I'm going to put the URL to my main project, and that's going to be within quotes. And in order to get that, I'm going to be using Dropbox to facilitate ease of development and editing of my project. So I'll get that once I load that particular project into my Dropbox and I get that public URL in Dropbox. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and compile. Actually, I'm not going to compile it yet because I don't have my URL. I'm going to click Apply. And then we'll go ahead and save this. And we'll just save it as AMP Launcher. That's good. I think I'm going to get rid of the space there. And we'll just save it on the desktop into a new folder. Test. And save it. So at this point, I'm going to open up another stack. Make a new project. This is going to be my main stack. So I'm going to go ahead and give this stack, we call it G-Scraper, because what we're going to do is we're going to scrape images from Google Images and make a little query application that will allow us to query for images in Google Images and then throw those into an app so that we can then incorporate those into our photo stream if we choose to. If we were like working on a project, if we were a student collecting, say, images for a research project or a multimedia project, this little tool will give them the ability, without having to even go onto the web browser, just to use this app to query Google Images and return images based on what they queried for. So we're going to make this then. Can make this landscape. It's also going to be iPad. And this particular project is just going to contain 2 objects for demonstration purposes. It's going to contain 1 button, so we're going to drag out a button here. And we're going to label this button Search Images. We can stretch this out a little bit. And we're going to create 1 field. And I'm only going to use the field to demonstrate what this button actually does. So you can see the search results being returned. And we'll just put that right there. And I'm not even going to name it. I'll just leave it field 1. All your objects are numbered. They're based numerically on how you create them. So this is field 1. This is also button 1. I could give this a name. You can see it's field ID. It's got an ID also, so I can reference it by ID. I can reference it by number, or I can reference it by name. Same thing with any other object in LiveCode when you're creating objects on the window, or in the window. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And it's going to go into the same folder as my app launcher. And at this point, now that I saved it, I'm going to drag this into my Dropbox folder. So I'm going to open Dropbox. And I'm going to move some of this stuff out of the way. And I can't remember, there it is, I put it on the desktop. And we're just going to move GS Scraper into my public folder. And I think I may have already one in there because I tried this earlier. Actually, I don't. I just have GScrape Engine, so I just need to remember which is which. So I'm going to drag this into my, make a copy of it into my Dropbox folder. And there it is right there, right above the one I did yesterday. And then what I can do is I can get the public URL for this particular document in my public Dropbox folder. And I do that by just clicking on it, right-clicking or 2-finger clicking, and then going to copy public link. And that public link is the link that we'll use to actually launch our app in to launch our app from our compiled iOS app. So I'm going to right-click this or 2-finger click it, and I'm going to go ahead and put that URL between those 2 quotes. So that's the public URL for that particular app. I'm going to go ahead and click Apply. At this point, even though this app doesn't do much other than launch another project from my Dropbox folder, we're going to compile this and move it into the iPad so we can begin testing our main stacks. So now to test this, I could actually launch this in the iPad simulator, or the iPhone simulator. And to do that, I need to set the standalone features, or the standalone application settings. So I'm going to go into the standalone application settings, and you can see right off the bat that if I wanted to, I could create a Mac app, a Windows app, a Linux app. I could create a web plugin. But what we're going to do is an iOS app. So I'm going to unclick all these so that I don't necessarily generate a app for each one of those platforms. And I'm going to select iOS, and we'll call this, I don't know, you can make up whatever you want here, but when you submit, you have to have a specific internal Apple ID that you use. And this is GScrape. I think I called it that. And then you have to have a provisioning profile, and that's something you create in your OS X or in your Xcode account. When you create that, you create your own provisioning profile. We want this to be just iPad, and we'll go ahead and leave everything else pretty much as it is there. So we can go ahead and click that. And at this point, now that it's provisioned and now it's set up for an iPad iOS distribution, we could actually test this then. I want to test this on the iPad simulator, so you can click Test and then Save. And then it'll go ahead and launch the simulator. It's going to actually build an iOS app and then launch the sim. So the simulator starts up. And it looks like I did not set this to be landscape. It's still in portrait. So let's quit simulator and make sure that we set this up in stack settings, standalone application settings. for landscape. And that would be right down here. We'll do landscape left instead of portrait. And we'll try that again. So now it flips landscape. We've got our little title at the top. We have the one button, and if we click that, what you'll see what will happen is it's going to go out to my Dropbox, and it's actually loaded my my app that we created and saved into Dropbox. I'm not going to do anything because it doesn't do anything right now. We can click the button, but nothing's going to happen because we haven't added any code yet. So at this point, we're going to add some code to our, actually let's just compile it. So to create a standalone now for this particular project, what we're going to do is just go down to save as a standalone application. We're going to save it in the test app folder, which is on my desktop, and it will save. Looks like I get one error because I haven't created a splash screen for this app. Because we're just testing it, it's not really that big of a deal. Move over here, grab my iPad, and I'll show you how you get this on your iPad. So I've grabbed my iPad, and I'm going to go ahead and I'll quit LiveCode for now. One thing I forgot to do is I forgot to put my icon on my standalone settings. I haven't set the icon, so it's going to have a generic icon. So I'm going to plug my iPad in. Actually, I'll start up Xcode. Okay, so now we've got our iPad connected to our laptop, and we're going to go ahead and copy that app that we created, the launcher, into our iPad. So to do that, we're going to select Applications. You notice we've got a green light now next to our iPad. You'll see I've got a couple other different applications that are currently on my iPad and under development. And if I open up Test App, you'll see our App Launcher app there, and all we do is we take this and we drag it over into the window here and let go, and it essentially copies now our Dev App Launcher onto our iPad. So at this point, I can go ahead and close these windows. So we've gone ahead and opened up our iPad, and we're going to navigate to those apps. And you'll see I've got three different test apps in there. The last one, App Launcher, is the one we just created. I'm going to click on that. It's going to launch. And then I'm going to go ahead and it's App Launcher there that we labeled it, and we'll hit that button. And it launches the app. Notice the keyboard comes up because the field currently is focusable, meaning we can edit in there. So if I wanted to, I could bring up that keyboard again and then type some text in there. We're going to fix that in a minute. So now that we've got our app launcher compiled and created and put on our iPad, we can begin testing code. And what I'm going to do is, rather than have you sit and watch me fat finger this whole script, I'm just going to copy this script. This is the handout for tomorrow's workshop. But you'll notice that there's only one object that's getting scripted, and that's the button on that particular card. So I'm going to copy this, and once I copy it, we're going to go back to LiveCode, and we're going to open up that stack that I've got in my Dropbox folder that we just put there in the public folder. And that's called what did I call it today? It's GScraper LiveCode. So we're going to fire that up, and so this is being launched from the public folder, from the public Dropbox folder on my Dropbox account. And like I said, the only thing that's being scripted is going to be the search button here. So I'm going to open up the script. I right-clicked or two-finger clicked it, and then in between the mouse up and the mouse end mouse up and on mouse up, I'm going to go ahead and paste that code in there. And you'll notice that you can pretty much walk right through the code to see what it's doing. It's putting this URL, which is actually a Google Images search, and notice we're looking for trees in the query. I could have created another field and allowed a student to type in something that they were looking for, but this is hard-coded to look for trees. And it's going to search Google Images for this. It's then going to put that in a variable called X, and then once that search return, all that text, that search text is in the variable, we're going to go ahead and clean up the search return results so that they're a little bit easier to read and a little bit easier to parse out the image links. So we're doing a bunch of replacing the greater than and less than symbols, the tags there. We're putting in some return characters. We're filtering for the image URL, and then we're going ahead and capturing that. We are going and replacing some ampersands with tabs, and then we're putting all that massaged search result text back into card field 1. Once it's in card field 1, you'll see it's in nice list format with the image URLs. And then what we're doing is we're going through and essentially parsing out the images. We're creating a new card, we're creating a new image object, and we're creating a new button. And that particular button then is having its location set to a particular coordinate on the window. So that's 10 pixels to the left and 10 pixels down is the top left of that particular button. And then we're actually going ahead and creating a script to put the script of that particular button in that new button that we create via a script. And what that does, the important part of what that does is right here. And what it's doing is it's essentially allowing, in this case, a student to take any image that they see and add those to their photo gallery or their photo stream on their iOS device. And then that's pretty much it. And it's looping through that whole list, doing that with each particular image that it finds. So for every image that it finds, it's creating a new window, it's creating a new image to hold that picture, and it's creating a button on that window so that the user, if they choose to, can add that particular image into their photo gallery. And we can click apply, and then we'll go ahead and save this. I could actually run this right now and it would actually work as a desktop app too, but I don't want to have to delete the cards here, so I'm just going to save it. And then we're going to go ahead and go back to our iPad and see if actually what we're going to do is change this field. So I'm going to bring up the properties to this field so that the keyboard doesn't come up. And I'm going to say, don't wrap text, don't make it focusable. That means don't make it so that we can type in it. And we'll lock the text. And we'll say no scroll bars, so we'll get rid of the scroll bars. And now we'll save this. And now we'll launch our launcher app, which then launches this app from our Dropbox folder, and see if our stack works, our project works. Navigate to where those apps were and see if our changes were saved to our stack. Go ahead and launch the app launcher. I'm going to click Launch App, and it will launch that app. Hopefully the keyboard doesn't come up, which it does not. And then the field's a little bit smaller. I may need to go back and fix that. I didn't realize I made the field so small. But if I click that button now, what it's going to do, it's going to go out, and it's going to go through now, and it's querying Google, and it's doing this quite fast. Now there's one problem here, and that's the fact that I didn't put any navigation between those screens. So to fix that, we're going to go back into the stack, and we're going to put some touch, on touch, end touch, start touch messages to determine swipes. So when we're viewing these images, we will go through and use our finger to swipe through each image one at a time. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and fire up LiveCode again. And I'm going to open up GScraper. And what we're going to do this time is I'm going to move this recording menu out of the way. And we're going to lock this field. Actually, I looks like I've already done it. So if I go into the basic properties for objects, I can go to size and position, and I'm going to lock it, so maybe that'll keep it from resizing itself when we open up in iOS. I'm going to close that. And I'm going to add a script to the main stack. So every window is part of the stack, and the stack can have its own script too. So if I go to Object and I go to Stack Script, I'm going to put this script, I copied it already from the previous app, and what it does is it allows for navigation between the cards with just finger swipes. So it's essentially measuring the touch start and the touch end and the amount of time the finger is on the glass as it's swiping, and depending on which way the finger swipes, it will navigate through the cards that way. So it's a little bit more advanced, but you can see Command Visual Swipe Left, Visual Effects, Scroll Left Normal, Go Next Card. You can see exactly what it does. It's in plain English. It's not any kind of high-level hieroglyphic programming language that's hard to understand. It's plain English. So I'm going to save that, and then I'm going to save this stack again. And remember, because we're on the Dropbox, it's just saving to the Dropbox folder. I can close this, and now we'll go back and see if we can navigate between the cards on our iPad. So we've made some changes to our app. We made it so that we can swipe through the images. We've also locked that field so that at least you should be able to get a glimpse at what that looks like. We'll go ahead now and launch the app. As the dog barks in the background. And we'll click Launch App. The app will launch. Oh, still got the small field. We'll have to look at that. More debugging. So if I click the Search Images button, it's going through now and querying Google Images for trees. And it's actually complete now. It's done. We could have put like a barber pole or a spinning bouncing ball to show that it's doing something, but kind of got that idea with the images flying into the stack from over the wire. So now we could go ahead and go back to that first card, and unfortunately I can't show it to you because my field is still too small. I don't know why it's doing that, but I'll have to look at that. But I can go back now and I can thumb through each one of these. So I'm just kind of moving my finger over the glass, looking at all the results of that query. When I find something I like, let's see if we find an image we like this one. This one's very pretty. If I take this particular image, notice my button at the top left doesn't have a name. That's the button that we scripted to put on this particular card, on each one of the cards. That allows me to take any image that I see and add it to my image gallery. So if I click that button, and if I navigate then to my images, I should have that particular images in my photo collection. So Photos, and there it is right there at the bottom. So I click that. It's now part of my gallery. So if I was doing some kind of multimedia project and I was a student gathering images, I could dump those directly into my gallery to incorporate into another project on another app on my iPad at a later time. Now granted, there's a lot that needs to be done to make this particular app even better. And you'll see here it's the images are all gone now, so it doesn't retain the images once you do the search. We'd have to hit the button again, and that would go through and put the images back up there. So not necessary that, especially if you're not doing, searching for thousands, you could easily just go back and do the query again. But copyright information, we could have fields in here that pulls out the information on who the photographer was. So we could stick that in the image. All kinds of different things. And if you think about students and textbooks and stuff, the ability to update an e-textbook or a digital textbook on the fly, you can not only do this kind of data gathering with images, you can do this with Google queries, with RSS feeds, with Twitter responses based on Twitter searches. You could actually collect that data and report it and save it back out into a stack. So essentially you could have a textbook that builds itself based on the interests of the student and what they've decided to collect.